Welcome to the Big Fat Gay Podcast, where we like to talk about the things that are weighing on our minds. My name's Don Marshall. I'm a big, fat, chubby guy living here in sunny Hollywood, and today I am a pancake, pooped-out pancake boy, because I do not eat at IHOP before recording a podcast. It's a very bad idea.
I mean, just pancakes are not a, like, I have something to do today food.
They're not a top flight food.
It was something fast. I had 10 minutes.
Hi, my name is Dan Oliverio, author, public speaker, and chubby chaser. And I had some delicious sourdough bread and some lovely cheddar cheese. And yes, I just had my little continental
really
breakfast.
Good.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was
Sounds
delightful.
tasty as hell.
It was delightful.
Was the bread buttered?
No, it was not. But
Monster.
But it was a very moist, chewy sourdough baguette.
Okay. All right. I'll allow
baguette.
it.
Not
I'll
a proper
allow it.
baguette, but you know.
It's the only way the word moist is nice to hear.
I'm Kirby's on.
Speaking of moist.
I'm a super chub in West Hollywood today. And I guess I'm a cupcake boy because I had a cupcake with my coffee.
How moist was it?
It was appropriately moist.
How green is my valley? How moist? Never mind.
Did you frost your cupcake?
What was unusual was I was like, something is different about my coffee. And I realized that Dan gave me hazelnut syrup instead of vanilla syrup.
I mistook the syrups.
Monster.
I mean, it was not.
Monster once again.
Wait, you're allergic.
Twice in one podcast.
Twice in one morning.
No, it was nice. It was just like, it was different. It was, it's a nutty, it's
I like
roasty.
hazelnut in coffee, yeah. My name is Michael Willer. I am a chaser. And hey, I said my last name this time. I don't usually do that. Anyway, today I am an on-the-go rap boy because I had rap from Starbucks on the way here, and it was just fine. Nothing notable about it whatsoever.
And you found an open Starbucks. That's something.
Yeah, the one right around the corner. It's like 300 feet away from my house.
So we were talking about this before we started recording. There's been a Starbucks purge in our city.
Yes.
What was it, 27 locations shut down?
It's fun. They claim it's for safety, but it's funny how all of them are the biggest unionizing stores.
Yeah, funny that, huh?
Boo.
Because the Starbucks that's literally two blocks further down, but much, much smaller, apparently has no safety concerns worth closing for.
Until they unionized too.
Well, in other unionizing news, we have a Patreon.
There you go.
Did I do it? Did I segue?
That was a very smooth transition.
You
Well done.
segue.
Thank you very
Well
much.
done. Much admiration.
Going strong. We are running it to support the payment of an editor for the show. It's been going very well. We are working on some content. I know. One of the issues we're running into with the Patreon, as far as content generation goes, is that it still falls on me. So we sort of just shuffled sideways.
It doesn't help that all of us came down with COVID at the same time.
Yeah.
It's
a little
true.
bit of a
It's true.
speed bump in our content
I
creation.
promise we are working on some cool stuff. We're going to do, we have a mini-sode or two coming up. We are going to release a cool video or two coming up. So
That's so cool.
Yes, it's quite cool. Well, no, it actually really wasn't, because it was, at least one of them is set in Vegas, which was in fact not cool in the literal sense.
You mean
it was
temperature-wise?
extremely hot
Temperature, yeah.
in the figurative sense and literal. Anyway, hot like sexy. There you go.
Oh boy.
We're on the rails, everybody. I promise. These are just very winding tracks.
Did you need a second shovel?
No, one's good.
Michael's, I don't know. He's on, I'm imagining us all on like different, like I'm skateboarding and I'm like, speed up, man. And I like jump over you. Maybe you're on roller skates with like knee pads and elbow pads and a helmet. And I'm jumping over Michael and I'm like coming to a stop to tell everyone that next week we're going to be discussing the Netflix show Dead End Paranormal Park.
That's right.
Which is an adaptation of Hamish Steele's graphic novel, Dead Endia.
This is the so I've watched the first couple episodes, and we're going to talk about it next week in full, but this is the most Trevor show or thing I've ever seen.
It is. It's very...
For those of you who don't wander around Trevor's mind on a regular basis, as I do, yes, you can get a sense of the landscape in there from the show.
This is distinctly and in very
So
Trevor.
it's a horror show?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, there's zombies.
It's sort of monster of the week, I would say.
Yeah, there's horror, there's drag queen-esque female characters, there's
a lot of identity
talking
representation
animals,
and does she, well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
next
You should
week.
get it, but yeah.
Yes. Well, but anyway, so if you want to be in the know for that conversation, if you happen to have Netflix, go ahead and watch at least episode I would say episodes 1 and 2, or just watch the whole show if you can. But
Yeah.
So it's called
there's-
Dead End Paranormal Park on Netflix.
Yes.
yeah, 20 minutes long. Enjoy. Is that all the bookkeeping out of
That's
the way?
bookkeeping.
I think it is. Okay.
I'm skating along still now.
Okay. Well, here we go. Right into pop culture. So we have an article in Stylist that I think, Trevor, you found in your fat Greggator, right?
Yes. Well, so the story behind this in terms of like fat Greggator stuff was, so there is a campaign released by the Spanish government for like beach going stuff. And it's like a body positive campaign. It's a bunch of diverse women at the beach.
All bodies belong at the beach.
Yeah, it's a really great campaign for Spain. It's, every body is a beach body.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that came up. I thought it looked kind of weird. There was just something about it that was weird. Now, I think it's because at first I didn't know it was an illustration. I thought it was just a very like heavily photoshopped, airbrushed photo.
Oh,
And these are the airbrush photos of the bodies who would be at the beach, bodies of all sizes. And, it's a great idea for a campaign.
Yeah.
Except that.
unfortunately, they stole at least a couple images of actual models,
Yes.
including Naomi Nicholas Williams, who is a plus size model, has a big social media following, and they took a picture of her posing in her own bedroom. That
And by
was,
take a picture, you mean stole a picture.
literally took, as in yes, took
Used
without
her
permission.
likeness without her permission.
Without permission, and photoshopped her out of her own environment onto the beach with the other people, and like the whole thing obviously didn't tell her, didn't ask permission, didn't pay her. Like,
And as if that's not like sort of yucky enough, they also found a
disabled person,
disabled person and then airbrushed out her prosthetic.
her prosthetic leg, yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Oh, what?
almost grosser.
But you're doing a campaign for inclusionism on the beach.
It's not that inclusive, Don.
But Don, it gets better because then
I'm so confused.
there was a third model.
oh no.
Oh no!
Where the model had a double mastectomy and they took her face and put it on a different body.
Whoa! Why?
Because it's body positivity
Why
with-
bother?
Dude, this is like straight up contradictory to what you're trying to do.
Exactly. Because we like body positivity as long as we're positive about the bodies we're featuring.
Well, and so the article is about Naomi responding to this and basically saying like, this is not okay. You can't just steal. And she brings it to a place that I think is incredibly relevant, which is that, women have to fight every day to be listened to and to have the respect that they deserve. And you can't just take somebody's image, somebody's livelihood essentially out of their control
In her case.
and use it in her specific case. And it's pretty gross. The artist responded. So it wasn't the government hired somebody, obviously they contracted somebody, and the artist who did the actual work, who stole the images, basically said like, I didn't realize I needed to pay for this, and is trying to make good and is like going to work out like paying all the people for in retrospect.
And
like,
they also stole the
font.
typeface. They stole the
Literally
the
used the
typeface.
Oh my God.
yeah.
They stole the typeface as well. And like, I didn't realize that if it's on the internet, it might not be free. That was basically the excuse. It's on the internet, it must be free.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is a State Department, they should have legal. So that's on them.
Yeah.
They should have to pay through the nose.
It's Spain, Dom.
It doesn't matter. They're a legal entity.
It's
So-
not great. It's
so-
something where it's like, I mean, before, because like I said, when I saw this and I thought it looked weird. This is before the controversy came out. And I was like, I just put it in my little thing aside. And then I saw this come up about the first person being discovered that like, they didn't get permission. And then it just kind of kept rolling. And
It kept getting worse and worse and worse.
I don't know if there have been any updates on it since this story came
It
out.
leaves off with them basically, Naomi saying that, they're working out the payment, but it hasn't been done yet. They're basically working on it with their agent and blah, 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 blah. I like how she handled it, which was basically, I'm not looking to torch anybody online, especially like I'm not trying to string them up, but this is not okay, and they need to be held accountable.
Well, and it's really funny because the intent is great, but then it just gets worse and worse the closer you look.
I'm curious if they
don't-
would felt it necessary to create a Franken picture if it wasn't for body diversity. Like they just didn't have any people on the beach, so how could they take the picture? Like honestly, just hire some models. put together a photo shoot.
I wonder if
It's not that expensive.
No. They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
I wonder if it was a function of like the artist not having any of these body diversity traits themselves, and so they kind of had that shame of like, well, I know I have to include this, but I want to actually really show it.
My
right?
guess,
like I don't have to.
my guess is it's a straight white guy and it's a beach ad, and he's just going to include bodies that he thinks aren't too offensive, and fix the ones that are.
Well, I think it is.
I've worked on projects like this, like where you have a shoestring budget, and if you don't have a budget for legal, you're not going to be paying a high-priced graphic designer either.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
willing
true.
to bet it's some poor kid they hired straight out of college.
Stock photos are a thing. Like stock photos are a thing. That's what this is for.
And good
Yeah.
stock photos are behind a paywall. So if they didn't give him that
you pay like
paywall,
$100 for a stock photo. There you go.
yeah, I agree with you, but apparently they're not.
I know. I'm just saying that this to me is a function of greed. I think that the artist wanted to keep all of the money for themselves, and this is the easiest way to do that. And they knew they could do the work if they found somebody who fit the images that were requested by the Spanish government, and they went out and grabbed them and photoshopped them and tried to overlay a filter so that it wouldn't be too recognizable, and maybe take out some features like the prosthetic leg and like, oh, it's just the blah, blah, blah. It's stock footage. But no, like they didn't, and they got caught. Like, what do you want?
Yeah, there is a sense of like, who's going to know?
Right. Yeah. So don't do that.
And I don't give Naomi Nicholas Williams a follow. And I don't know, just don't. Don't Photoshop people without their permission for a major campaign for your country's government.
But thank God
just
the
freaking
typeface was
crazy.
safe. They didn't maim that.
Oh, well, they did. Yes, exactly.
They just stole it. They didn't maim it. No kerning was abused in the use of this typeface.
Rolling right along.
Tracking's too high. The tracking's too high. Okay. Enough of that.
From KHN, there was this cool article about doctors getting schooled in looking beyond obesity. And even just like the article talks about like classes in treating people like human beings.
I know.
Even if they're fat.
Imagine that.
Well, and I should say that what makes this, I think, a little more surprising is you kind of blew past that, Trevor. It's Kaiser Health News. Now, this is in no way associated with the Kaiser Permanente medical facility.
Oh, I would have been
I had-
confused by that.
Yeah, it is not. It is not. And they go to some lengths to say that. They are simply another arm of the same foundation, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like if you can imagine, like the Kaiser family has a whole bunch of money, and with some of the money they start a hospital, and with some of the money they have a health foundation, and with some of the money they do. All right, so they're not affiliated with Kaiser Permanente.
Right.
However, they are affiliated with reporting on health news. And this was big news that like we're going to educate doctors in treating fat people like people rather than as mistakes.
Well, and I mean, the conceit of the article is largely that, we all agree that obesity is a disease, but you have to treat it on a case-by-case basis rather than, a one-size-fits-all, like move more, eat less, which is basically how it's handled now. So it's...
Well, and I mean,
let's face it, like if somebody else had like another disease like leprosy, you're not going to just say like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't treat your knee issue because you've got leprosy.
and if you
and
don't
you've got a disease. I'm sorry, you can't be helped.
Well, and that's what the article starts with, a story about a woman who went to her doctor because she was having some pelvic, like sort of pain and numbness. And the doctor, of course, was like, well, just,
Yeah, he diagnosed her as fat.
She did eat less and move more.
She did,
and
yeah.
turns out she was like, well, we'll do a ultrasound.
The person had to go to another doctor.
Well, no, they did the ultrasound. The same doctor did the ultrasound, and they found a tumor on her uterus. And the doctor told her, this isn't anything to worry about. And then she went to a second doctor, got a second opinion, and that doctor was like, no, we will perform surgery on this.
Yeah,
And
it's nothing to worry about. The real issue is that you're fat.
yes.
Not that you're a tumor, you're fat.
Tale as old as time.
Dan, you actually gave, I think it was you that gave this advice once upon a time of like when a doctor offers you, if you weren't fat, we should do this, but since you're fat, you shouldn't. Could you put that in my record that you're giving me different advice because I'm fat?
And by the way, I got that from Reagan Chastain, who is a wonderful researcher into the pseudoscience of obesity. So some of her things are, number one, could you put it in your chart that you think there should be no follow-up? Can you put it in my chart that you tell that there's nothing to worry about and you're not recommending blah, blah, blah. And then the other thing is, I see. So if I were thin, you'd also tell me to ignore it. The idea of what would be the treatment modality if I weren't fat?
Yeah.
And then they say, because there is no disease that only strikes fat people.
You have to learn to push back for yourself if you're fat in a doctor's office. You have to.
But I think the great part of this article is it's finally coming not just to the mainstream, but to the medical stream.
Right.
That you can't just diagnose the patient as fat. And the quote in the article is, it's tantamount to malpractice to diagnose the patient with fatness and then send them on their way.
Well, and a huge part of it, so we're talking around it, but the huge part of it is addressing the educational factor. Of
Absolutely.
when you're training doctors, they go through medical school. It's a huge amount of schooling. And as the one person they interviewed was saying, there's a stack of literature, a foot high, of what they still can't cover in medical school. There's just so much. And they spent, I think anecdotally it was said they spent 9 hours over the course of 4 years on obesity.
Yeah.
So like, they are not being given the tools to do this properly anyway. I mean, don't be an anti-fat asshole, but also like the education needs to change.
Well, and I think especially with obesity, a lot of these medical students come into it with a pre-existing bias. A lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
And if you're not helping them unlearn those biases, they're not going to be very useful in the diagnosis room.
But I think, and again, this comes from the fatosphere. If you walk into a doctor's office and you say, I have knee problems, but it's not my weight, you might as well walk in there with a tin hat complaining about the alien voices in your head. You are so not taken seriously. And that's because, as Michael said, it's not taught. The research that, statistically, you're healthier if you're overweight, quote unquote, than if you are normal weight. There is no adverse. They did a study on like knee replacement surgery, and the outcomes for obese and non-obese patients were the same.
I mean, just the
They had
fact
other
that I
mitigating
still have
factors.
to fight every doctor I want for every treatment over BMI, right? In this day and age.
Well, and then
insane.
there's that thing where they go like, well, we know BMI is fucked up, but anyway, your BMI, and then merrily
I've
we
had that
roll
exact
along.
conversation.
Yeah, merrily we roll along.
I mean, I don't know if this has come up on the podcast before, but I've been doing research on fat death planning. So basically death planning as a fat person, and something a lot of people think is like, oh, I'll donate my body to science. And the weight cap for donating your body to science, to medical schools, is 200 pounds, unless, there's some places where, we're doing, a special study on obesity, so they can bump that up to 250 pounds.
Yeah. Well, and that goes to another
Wow.
That goes to another avenue of medical research and medical education, which is everything that the medical student is exposed to, and every research study, because most of them are done as drug trials, is designed for a particular type of body, and often cases a particular race and a particular gender.
Yeah.
And so it's really restrictive that you're not testing and you're not researching human beings and bodies. You're researching what you consider your best case scenario human being. And that's a judgment call.
Well, I mean, it shocked me when I found out how recently it's been when they started testing new drugs on women. Period. Just on women. Up until recently, basically, women were considered to be men with strange hormones that you couldn't account for.
Yeah.
So just test the drugs on men.
Well, and from their perspective also, it's like, well, if we include women, then we have how many women, and we have to balance. That's another statistic we have to counter for, and blah blah blah.
It's
blah. So
another
what? Let's just keep it all.
another
Let's just keep it all white straight men.
So the takeaway from this is that the Association of American Medical Colleges is tackling the problem in two ways. And I'm definitely not reading this directly from the article. Firstly, they're developing a readiness exam for aspiring medical students called Preview, which is sort of designed around assessing like competent social skills, listening skills, like things that are not necessarily memory based, which that was one of the things they talk about was like so much of medical training is based on memory, which really doesn't have to apply anymore. Like you have so many easy to reference resources now. And the second way is basically rolling out new competency standards for existing medical students, residents, and doctors, et cetera, around diversity, equity, and inclusion, which would, of course, encompass quote unquote obese people, also different races, et cetera. It's
good that this is finally breaking through in the medical community because it had been as I said, it's like you're wearing a tinfoil hat and trying to convince them of aliens.
Well, speaking of tinfoil hats, I have nothing else. Here we go.
The tinfoil hat.
Well, I was wearing mine, so I didn't hear that.
2022. Oh, yes, where our feet are touching the ground.
We're coming down
Yeah.
like Mary Poppins from on high.
Bigby as hell. Isn't that an uncle that's always perpetually levitated?
So now I'm picturing Trevor floating around Little Mary Poppins umbrella made of eagle feathers. This is very weird.
It's basically
Or
it.
awesome.
This week, I wanted to spotlight some videos from Anna Chapman, who listeners might be familiar with because she used to be with Join, which, I don't know if it came up on the podcast. Join is no more.
Oh, no.
Well, what is it?
Join was they for fat people, by fat people, online exercise video platform. They were spotlight for, I think, a tip. And then they went free, like no membership fees. And now the site's closing, but they're transferring a lot of their videos to YouTube. So some of their stuff will still be available. But the reason we're discussing Anna Chapman is she has been doing these videos on fat self-care. And how it's been working is she's been looking at different like skin issues and stuff fat people have and crowdsourcing tips on how different people handle it because everyone's bodies are different. So like one thing that I thought was interesting. So if you go to her Instagram, go to her stories, you can see this. She's been archiving all of these things.
Okay.
Like talking about like chapped butt crack.
Is that
like-
in there? I didn't even notice that.
Which I didn't really ever like think of as like a thing that people might not deal with. But I get that sometimes. I don't know. Like,
Well, and we talked about skin issues, things like when there's acne in the folds or irritations that cause ingrown hairs because of tight pants or whatever.
And I mean, there's a lot of tips in there. I was also just scrolling through. I think she put a lot of these in her regular posts.
yeah.
But her Instagram is just
Chock full.
it's
I
yeah.
didn't see that.
There's so many like jumping into the water, like she's testing out a bathing suit, right? She's like, oh, here's a bathing suit, but she's just like jumping into the water with this big smile and splashing around, and I don't know. It feels kind of like the pool party from Shrill. Like
Yes.
you can go to the space and just experience like, I don't know, her living a fun, happy life and doing things to make other fat people's lives happy and fun too. And it just feels good. It's the epitome of fat watch, I would say.
Going through this sort of list is also very useful for a lot of people because, like, again, it's like the chapped ass thing, right? Like, there are things on that list that I never really thought about, but they're true, and it's nice to hear it said out loud,
I mean, I don't know if listener, have you had a chapped butt crack? It's not, it's uncomfortable. And it's just something that, I don't know. There's
so
tips
many
now
tips.
for, like,
There's so
what to
many
do.
tips. There's like, I don't know, 30, 50? How many are there? It's
A lot. There's
it's
a lot. And related to that, so for Fat Liberation Month, it's still here. It's still happening. We're still in it. Anna Chapman is supposed to be doing a webinar on this topic with NAFA.
What is the topic, Trevor?
Fat self-care.
Okay.
But that's date time still TBD for that.
But this month at some point.
Yes.
August 2022. In case you're listening in the future.
Yeah, I guess.
What are the chances?
What if they're listening in August 2023? It could be quite confusing.
Yes. I mean, there could be another one. And if you can't make it whenever it is, it will be on YouTube eventually. So
Excellent.
You'll be able to watch
I'm
later.
assuming NAFA has a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
okay,
yes.
good.
Alive and well.
These
There's
are
all sorts of stuff.
very
on
important
there.
things.
Yeah, but check it out. I'm trying. What's the I don't know, moisturizer, little butt crack. Go watch.
Moistness.
Or find some kind
is quite
person who will
important
do it for you.
this episode.
Aquaphor is a good thing for it, apparently. And then there's actually all these I don't know, specific products. They're not Buttcrack moisturizer.
Funnily enough, there is no brand that comes right out and says that that's what they're for, but there are things that are useful.
Ooh, it's not Burt's Bees. It's like Butt's Bees.
I've made enough hams. The
George
first
Block
thought that
uses
crossed
it
my mind was
himself.
pineapple and cloves.
It's good. It's,
Good job, everybody.
Yeah. Check it out. I feel like a lot of people probably are already following her, but if you're not, what's wrong with you? Go follow.
I am
see the
Anna
tips.
Chapman on Instagram.
Yes. Tips with a Z. She doesn't spell it with a Z, but I feel like it should.
Tips. Tips.
That's just your creative contribution to the effort. The Z.
Tips. Tips. Well, anyway, here we are.
We're
bumbling once more into the main subject.
we're feeling good. Our butt cracks are moisturized. We're in Fat Liberation Month, and we were thinking about just doing some like tales.
Tales from Liberation!
I think Michael should start us off.
Okay,
I want to
I
hear him
can-
because he was telling us
Yes.
a tale.
I have a tale of liberation. I mean, it's mostly a tale of liberation, I would say. So there is a company called Cushion Lab that makes, I think, a number of products, but the one that came up on my ads in Facebook was a cushion to sit on for your office chair.
Oh, I've seen this. Yes.
Yeah. And so they have, quote unquote normal sizes, but they also, this particular ad was for a larger size cushion that was for plus size people. It was like, now there's one for you. But they have in their ad copy, that the weight limit is 310 pounds, which, it's something.
It's something.
Like, right, that's,
It's a size large
we haven't,
person.
we haven't said that in a while. It's something, but
Not extra large, but large.
so there's a lot of comments going around. Everyone's saying, "Oh, this is great. I would love to use this." And I was like, I feel like this is an opportunity here. So I went on and commented on their Facebook post, and it's still there. I appreciate and support creating products to serve plus size people, but capping your size limit at 310 pounds barely qualifies. Are there plans to add more size options? And they wrote back right away and said, "Thanks for all the feedback. Our product team is working hard to see how we can meet all needs and bring comfort to all." And they added their, flexing arm emoji at the end of this to indicate the power of their research team. That's right.
Powerful research and development.
And product team. And so, but there were also, as you can imagine, a number of comments.
What, you got blowback? Oh, I can't imagine.
Well, here's the thing. There was very little blowback. In
good.
fact, sort of reading down the list, one fellow said, "That's right. Plus size is 385 and more. Look at the BMI tables versus height and width. The average plus size human, you will sell thousands more." It's a little problematic, but he's supporting, so that's something.
Well, he's trying to engage them with you'll make more money, do it.
Yeah, which is honestly, that's the way to get somebody's attention.
Yeah.
Another person said 100% agree. Cushion Lab wrote back and said, "I will forward this to our product team." So they're fairly responsive. I don't know if
Oh,
they're
it's not
actually
just a
doing
loon
this.
out there who likes fat people. Yeah.
Somebody else wrote, 310 is big, but
Yeah.
But what?
But like they're basically saying like your attempt to accommodate bigger people is not good enough.
Oh, so agreeing
That's
with you.
the extrapolation there. But they're also saying like 310 is huge, but it's not huge enough for that. Like your product is
It's
not quite.
fat, but not like fat.
So somebody else, in fact, I can't see it anymore, which makes me think she deleted it. There was one person who wrote a pretty shitty response and basically was saying like, "You have to lose weight. If you weigh that much, you should be ashamed of yourself." And blah, 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 blah. And I wrote something in reply to her like, don't be a fatphobic prick or whatever. I just wrote something very straightforward.
Probably
and to
not the
point.
word prig.
Not prick. I mean, it was like, I don't know. I was a little more diplomatic about
Diaper face.
it. Yes. That.
Dipstick.
You were responding to a post and you were diplomatic?
Yeah.
Have I not introduced you to the internet yet?
Yeah.
I was, and I felt good because, first of all, most of the other comments were fairly supportive. By the way, my comment has 73 positive reactions to it. Not the only one that I could see. There's two. You could do the angry face, which is like people are getting upset by you, or you could do the laughing, like, "Oh, that's hilarious. You think 310 isn't big enough," or whatever. But none of that. All likes, hearts. I guess there are a couple shocked faces, so whatever. But like largely positive responses.
Which, I mean,
how'd
take
that
it as a
make you
win.
feel?
Take it as a win.
Every time I got a notification for like a comment or a like or whatever, I had that initial thing of like, do I check this? Because Facebook doesn't tell you what the person said. They just said somebody replied to your comment. And so I would check it periodically, just sort of like with that ready to cringe. And every time I checked it, it was like, actually, this is not bad. Like, this is kind of okay, except for that one woman who was one of the later comments. And it felt pretty cool. And I don't know if Cushion Lab is actually going to update their products. I sent this 13 weeks ago. So they've had a couple months to start putting this together.
I think the fact that you received such support and positive response and it generated such interest, I think they're probably looking at this.
I would hope so. In fact, I think my comment has the most responses on this particular ad. Like everyone else has like 2 or 3 likes or whatever. Mine has 73, so they can go fuck themselves, basically.
Just to support what you're saying, I've received the same ad, saw the weight limit, and was like, nope, and just
Yeah. Well, because
like-
it's not like your target demographic, largely, like no pun intended, is not going to fit your advertising.
Well,
Like,
I would think that would almost be like the standard weight limit for something. 'Cause it's
310?
Yeah. Like if that's they're like, oh, here's our fat person size. It's like, what is the other one max out at?
Dude, when I was looking for a fat-friendly office chair, I can't tell you how many of them top out at 250.
I was going to say, yeah.
Like, it's so
guess.
frustrating.
I was going to guess 220 because it's 100 kilograms.
Yeah, it's insane.
I had an office chair that went up to 1,000 pounds, apparently.
So it said.
But then it broke because I was trying to move it, and it got like stuck in the door, and then it just detached from the base.
Well, haven't we found, Trevor, that a lot of the products that are rated like, extra heavy duty for fat people actually break first, and then it's the thing you just bought at the local place that lasts forever, right?
well, I believe you when you say it was broken, but I'm just checking. Office chairs are meant to detach from the base. They're not.
No, this was like
locked
something
in.
where it's like
they lift off.
It was deformed in a way where it wouldn't reattach.
Okay, yeah.
And I know someone else that had this, and like they,
Yeah.
Did you drop kick it through the door frame? Is this what happened?
No.
Or how did?
and we only rode it down the stairs that one time.
No, I don't know what. I think the weight capacity for my current office chair is supposed to be like 350 or something. I am exceeding that, and I am not gentle with this chair. And it's going
Meanwhile,
strong.
I've got a gaming chair that's supposed to be rated up to 500 pounds, and after 2 years, that fucker squeaks like crazy. Like, it's so loud.
squeak.
It's almost like they go after the demographic.
The squeakening.
They go after the plus size demographic, but then go like, oh, we can sell these people a million pieces of shit because they pull back on the quality. Meanwhile, the thing that is just rated for normal people is often much more successful.
So yeah, anyway, that was I actually have 2 stories, but I don't want to go twice in a row. I think somebody else should go next. Are we going to go around the room, or who wants to follow up?
I guess maybe I'll go.
You go.
We'll go the other way. We never do that.
So I think I may have talked about this before on the podcast already. So I don't know.
I will buzz you if you have.
So
Eject you from the couch.
my mom has been through a journey of,
True.
I don't know, fat acceptance stuff and just dealing with me on that. And like, I don't know, everything my whole life. It's been a journey for her in all the different ways.
Were you the problem child?
Oh my
No,
God, no.
I was
Oh my God, no.
I was the good one. But I was the only one that actually, no, sidebar. I was the only one that ever ended up grounded.
Really?
I got grounded once.
Because she could. None of the others would listen.
Well, and also she was going through menopause. So I think that is really. Anyway, coming back. From that,
30 Rock. Oh no, my period.
I mean, basically. Anyway. So she has gotten to a point to where she is like kind of woke about fat stuff. Where like, so she'll like talk about Lizzo and like very positively. And she's like, oh, there was this terrible man on TV criticizing Lizzo.
Wow.
And it made me so angry because she's just so beautiful and she shouldn't have to do anything. He was just,
wow.
And like, I don't understand. And he's so hateful. And
I'm so jealous of you right now.
it was like, and it's come up before this, that awful man from the news.
Is it the same guy? Or?
Yeah. And
Okay.
she like come up about like, oh, he was talking about fat people and it just made me so angry. And I just wanted to unleash Dan on him, and I just want to see him
off the leash. He's off the leash.
Yeah. I want to see Dan debate him because he would Dan would put him in his place.
We need to issue like Dan launchers to fans. Like just walk into a place, just launch a couple Dans into the room and just leave.
Well, there is the Dan light. They shine in the sky.
I think it's the Dan thing would be more like an app. And it's kind of like in the Flash TV show where it's like when they're in danger, they press the app and Dan shows up. But I was like, eventually I was like, okay, but like, who is this man, this awful man, trying to get her?
This terrible man, some awful man on TV. Who was it, Trevor?
The awful man from the news. It was Bill Maher.
Oh God. I mean, Bill Maher sucks anyway, but that's hilarious. God, the fact that people see him as news.
Well, but she just means it's non-fiction television.
That would be my
It's
assumption.
like talk. Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I think because it's like commentator.
And he doesn't cover
commentary.
the news,
He's a
and he's got
douchebag.
pundits
I mean, in the
on.
same that Tucker Carlson is the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You can anybody with a TV show can talk about anything they want, and it could be news or could be other stuff, and it's mostly just their opinions.
Well, and that's, to be fair,
That's also the regular news.
Well, that is
Anyway,
that is
back
actually,
to our opinions.
That is actually what Bill Maher states. He's like, this is everything I think about stuff.
Yeah, it happens that he's a douchebag.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just a nice little thing to see, my mom go from nothing to confrontational, in the past to now, like, I don't know, defending Lizzo and getting angry
step.
about Bill Maher, the man from the news.
Well, so my second story was basically the same as that, but I like this because for me it was like the feeling of fat liberation was like in sort of somewhat educating my family. I now, like, if somebody plans a family outing to some restaurant, I now no longer have to vet the venue because they have done it already.
That's great.
And then and my mom. And so initially it was just my little sister because I was living with her, and then my older sister. And now my mom, she moved to San Diego, and we've been down to visit a couple times. And she was like, she was really cute about it. She was a little awkward, but she was like, and so I also did check, the restaurant, and I wanted to make sure that it was, going to be comfortable for everybody.
Oh, sweet.
And so it should be, it should be okay. And I was like, and I was so surprised by it, but then I was like, this is great. And so like in Trevor's story, that's just like the continuation of that trajectory. Like she's now getting mad about people being shitting on Lizzo. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, listeners, get your families to defend Lizzo and check out seating.
She's the gateway drug to plus size seating.
I think so, maybe. Or just, having children who are parts of national fat organizations and do weekly podcasts about being fat.
One of those two things.
Maybe it's that. Yeah.
One of those two things.
Part of me is like, she says she doesn't listen, and I'm pretty sure she doesn't.
Well, we're going to find out now.
I don't know. I think I would have heard because I've talked about her a few times.
If she asks you about the Buttcrack moisturizing brand,
Yeah, for Christmas.
Stocking stuffers.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly how she'd say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's stuff. That's one stocking you're gonna stuff.
We could do a whole show on Trevor's family at Christmas. Yeah.
Oh, it's nuts.
Oh boy. All right, Dan, what you got for us today?
So this is a Starbucks story, actually.
Okay.
In honor of their
Callback.
Yeah. So once upon a time, I was in this, and you got to know, the Starbucks has been for those of you who don't know, there is a particular Starbucks in West Hollywood. There was. It was huge. It was a huge piece of real estate. It closed. We kind of alluded to that at the beginning of the show, but the point is, it's been there for 27 years.
Jesus.
And it's been there since I moved to the neighborhood, which was 2 decades ago. And I used to get, like a lot of people in West Hollywood, we're a lot of us in creative professions. So we do a lot of writing, and we do that in our third space in our,
which was Starbucks' whole branding
Starbucks.
policy.
Yeah.
We want it to be your home away from home.
And
It's
it
like
was
that in every city I've ever lived in.
Oh yeah, I wrote a play there. I wrote most of my book there, and everybody else did too.
Sorry, I just have to pause to let you know that I got a push alert on Twitter, basically that Bill Maher is being extremely fat phobic.
Just this minute you did,
just like
literally
he
just now.
He has a new video out attacking fat liberation.
Oh, okay. good.
Just in time for Fat Liberation Month.
Just in time for Fat
Anyway,
Liberation
Rachel,
Month.
continue.
Must have heard.
Writing at Starbucks.
So writing at Starbucks. So if you're a regular denizen, as I and so many other people were, you have what you refer to as your Starbucks friends. So these are people that you only interact with at Starbucks, and it's because you're there for like anywhere from 2 to 6 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
Because it's your other office, or in some cases, if you're a writer, it is your only office.
Yeah.
So I was working on something. I think it might have been the book, and he's like, "Well, what are you working on?" And so, so it's like, it's not so much that I'm this, this brave out chubby chaser. It's just that any question eventually leads back to my being a chubby chaser.
Right.
What do you do for a living? What are you talking about?
Personality.
Why are you here? Who's your husband? Like any question will lead back to that.
What's your name? Dan Oliverio, certified author and chubby chaser.
He's like, it's on my freaking card. Not that I'm a chubby chaser, but like I deal with this stuff. Right. So anyway, so we're talking about this stuff, and he is you can just watch him becoming disgusted. And I don't know how it came up, because I think at some point, as people sometimes do when they're being very cavalier, will say like, well, what do you mean? How fat?
Are we talking 240 pounds?
No, I mean, I used to say that, and this is a while ago, but in West Hollywood, if you were 200 pounds, you were either really tall or really buff or fat. Those are your choices. So I was like, how do you describe? Well, I showed him, I guess, a couple of pictures, and it came out of his mouth. Oh my God, I'd shoot myself if I looked like that. And I'm like, interesting. Why is that? And typical. Oh, because it's so unhealthy. So I said, so wait a minute. Let me get this straight. Being fat is so unhealthy that you would shoot yourself, which many people regard as unhealthy, because you were so fat. And like, I just wanted him to confront, you know that thing where like, it's like, oh, well, it's not that I'm prejudiced. I'm just concerned about their health, their health. And it's like, okay, but you shoot yourself. That's your health remedy. And because I'm usually there for the mop up, we got into this really deep conversation about his body issues and about being fat is absolutely terrifying to him. And it's one of the things he fears most in growing older is that he'll get fatter. And he's just confronting all this, which has nothing to do with fat people, of course. It's all him. But it was a really interesting conversation about trying to give him some freedom around this. But clearly he was just describing the walls of his prison.
Yeah.
It was really tough. But basically that, if I ever looked like that, I'd shoot myself. And I think that's when I got the depths of why it's called fat phobia. It is anti-fat bias. But for so many people, it really is fat phobia. They are terrified of this. And it reminded me of a time when I was listening to some Europeans, and they weren't talking about how much Americans hate fat. They were amazed at how afraid of becoming fat Americans were. And they'd picked this up from going through American grocery stores and like all the fat-free and low-fat alternative. And for a European at a particular time, I mean, they have these products now too. But, there was no such thing, 20, 40 years ago in Europe, there was no fat-free yogurt.
Well, that's an
it was just yogurt,
Yeah, if you go through a grocery store that says fat-free everything, it means that fat is bad. That's and we're talking about food fat, but the word fat gets equated across the board.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, fat dietary or bodily is the worst thing, and you want to be free of it.
Yeah.
And it goes into my whole moral thing about how we've moralized food. You have guilt-free potato chips and light and and eat clean. Eating clean? What the fuck is that? Who eats?
It means
do you dip it in chlorine? What do you do?
It means you eat. So eating clean is like when you eat like a raccoon. And you take your food and you dunk it in water first to wash off all the germs.
No, okay, so you don't mean you're eating the raccoon. You're eating in the way that a raccoon would.
With their little hands.
With the cotton candy. Where he dunks it in the water and then it just dissolves. And he's like, wait, what? What?
It's cruel. It's animal cruelty.
That was, I feel so bad when I watched that video.
There's some sick fucks out there, people.
There's
anyway, that's my story. That's my story of like getting people in touch with their fat phobia.
I mean, that's incredible because I can't. I'm sitting here thinking, what would it take for me to have that conversation with a stranger? Or I guess in your case, not totally a stranger.
You know
but,
me, I'm really pretty bold that way.
I mean, you're an extrovert and you like having conversations regardless, but at the same time, that's still a confronting
Dan just
topic.
likes talking to like people he hasn't met.
I don't understand.
Well, it's also an interesting topic because like I love to hear about it because as much as I hear people talking about fat around me, they're usually not willing to talk about that sort of like the disgust of fat. Well, they don't talk about that directly with fat people.
Exactly
so I don't
right.
get to participate in those conversations.
Well, and that's what Trevor was saying is the benefit of allyship is I can do things and have conversations that fat people don't get to have with other people.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the reasons I made the comment on the Cushion Lab advertisement.
Absolutely.
Because I know my Facebook profile picture is me and I am not fat. And therefore people can't read my comment, look at my picture and dismiss it for, oh, well, that's just a fat voice. Like, no, this is somebody who isn't the target demographic, but still believes in you doing the right thing here.
It is the most powerful aspect of allyship, I think.
As a fat voice, I agree.
You just said fat.
If I commented on that and said that, it would turn into a whole thing.
So what did Don bring to the table today?
Well, I
As
think
we
I went
round the second
very-
hour of our show.
very literal with this one. We have not marketed. That's the wrong word. We have brought up many products on this show that I have used and I have loved. I'll plug it again. Big Fig, freaking sponsor us. I have plugged your product so many times already. I love that mattress. But the thing that I have valued most that we have plugged on our show is the thing that has freed me from my pants.
Excuse me.
The over-the-shoulder undershirt suspenders that we pitched a long time ago. So I am that guy. I have to wear pants that my body changes shape when I sit down, right? So I have to wear pants that are large enough to be comfortable when I'm sitting, but small enough to not drop down around my ankles when I stand up.
You know, Don, I take issue with that premise. You do not have to wear pants.
Do it.
Oh boy.
Gotcha.
And I will tell you, like, my experiences going to Comic-Con have always been a little bit exhausting because I'm wearing these jeans.
Oh, yeah.
I'm walking around all day long. And, like, it takes physical effort for me to keep holding my, pawing up my pants.
Oh, I know as a chubby chaser, I mean, anybody I date, we have to do a pants break after about 50 yards.
It's so annoying, but I never realized how exhausting it was.
It is, yeah.
Until I got those suspenders.
And you were freed.
And I was literally freed from that.
You could
And-
use both hands.
Yeah, and it's like the realization that I'm nowhere near as out of shape as I thought I was.
Oh.
You know, that literally I can cover all of the Comic-Con floor, you know, without any serious issue.
I love that you
know,
thought you were stopping to pull your pants up, which feels like you're out of shape.
Yeah, well, because by
You're stopping.
You know, yeah, I'm stopping. I'm crossing this zone. I'm literally having to use upper muscle strength to pull my
Yeah.
pants up. Sometimes hold it up if I'm running.
True.
You know, I never took into account how exhausting that was for me. And when I started using these suspenders for sustained walking excursions out in the world, it was literally freeing. Like, I can park farther away. I can
Isn't that amazing?
spend more time doing the things I enjoy, you know, and it's,
People treated you better? No, that's something else.
well, you know, because I was able to keep up with people.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, I
you know,
suppose you're
it's, I'll be honest, you know, and it's not that anyone's being douchey, you know, it's just, I don't want to be a drag on them.
I mean,
You know?
my first thought when you said this is like, I can ride a bike again.
What you're doing on a bike that's pulling your pants down frightens me a little bit, Trevor.
Well, it's so funny because I was making the joke that you're comparing it to the supposed benefits of weight loss. That, you know, people treat you better and you have so much more stamina now. And it's not even a mobility aid. It's a pants aid.
yeah, it's literally keeping my clothing on.
I
you know?
love that. Yeah.
We've passed an hour in the show. I have
Yeah.
to start doing something.
Did
That's
you have
awesome,
the
though.
last one?
Well, mine was basically just piling. Trevor had such a similar one as my second one that I just added it in for his. So
Yeah.
I think we've made it. We made it through.
Excellent.
We have a tip this week.
Yes,
we
we
do.
do.
We have
We have 2 tips.
We have 2. A double
So-
tip Tuesday, even though it's Wednesday when this comes out.
The tip is the FAA is calling for feedback on the size of airline seats.
Now, before you sharpen your pencils, I should just add that the FAA is calling for comment on airplane seats. However, they are not at all interested in how comfortable you are. They see this purely as a safety issue because the current safety guidelines were developed, as we were speaking of earlier, only by young able-bodied people. So the question was, can young able-bodied people get out in case of an aircraft emergency? And because they thought it would be unethical to test this on children and older people trampling over each other in a simulator. And then it also brings up the question, which is what a lot of fat activists are concerned with, is like, A, nobody fits in those seats. And I can tell you as a non-fat person, I don't fit in those seats. And number 2, that if you're trying to get to the emergency exit and there's not enough room for anybody, that might impede progress. So the FAA is mostly concerned with, and they really want technical details like how wide you would make the seat or what you would do. They're really going at this from an engineer and a slide rule point of view of what would make it safer. They have zero interest in what would make it more comfortable.
Yes, but it's an opportunity.
It is.
Slide in there. So basically,
Use your slipstick.
how you make your voice known is there's a link on regulations.gov to this call for comments.
Oh, I love regulations. I go there all the time.
And you click on the comment section. We'll link to it on the episode page. And I've also shared some other people talking about this on Instagram. So you may have seen this already. But yeah, you have until November 1st, 2022 to weigh in, build your little, model airplane to decide how wide you think the seats should be.
I think we should have a diorama with the seats.
I was going to say, is this like a science fair? Like,
fourth grade diorama.
Do you have a presentation?
Yes, it's exactly like that. Our second tip, which is airplane related still, I'm going to pass it over to Dan.
Oh,
Because he wanted to say this last week, but we shot him down. We wouldn't let him.
Shouted him down.
yes, burn, crashed. Okay. No, so Southwest, as if the Southwest passenger of size policy is not wonderful enough that you get your second seat free. They have changed their policy now so that if you have to, let's say, cancel a trip, and typically what happens is if you cancel in Southwest, there's no rebooking fee. They bank your airfare, and you can use it again within 1 year of when you purchased the seat. What they've changed is you can use it forever.
They never expire.
They never expire. So you don't, because this would happen to us. We would decide in October that we're going to go to Gay Pride in New York in June, but then something happens, we can't go in March. Well, we only have till October to use that airfare. We have to complete travel by the end of October. Not anymore. It never
No
expires.
longer.
No longer is this the case. So it just let it ride, baby.
Yeah,
That's great.
And given that Southwest, like they have their issues, but the customer of size policy is unbeatable and worth supporting.
Yeah, I don't think any other airline really has a competing policy.
Not
at this
even-
point.
Not
No.
even close.
Not even
I think
close.
Air France will not charge you the tax on the second seat.
Oh, how kind.
I think didn't one of them give you like a discount on the second seat, but it was still you had to purchase it.
Delta is
I
a
think.
25% discount on the second seat.
Yeah, it's not the same. Not the same. And I mean, by the way, I don't think we've really made a big deal out of this. Not only do you get the second seat, you get priority boarding.
You get priority boarding.
on
You don't
Southwest.
have to wait in those
That's the only
pens.
way you'd be able to get it on Southwest.
Yeah, like you
They'd have
get to
to,
walk
yeah.
on almost first.
No,
onto
no,
that
no,
aircraft.
first.
Yeah, like
I mean, in the first group.
yes,
Yeah, in
Yes.
the pre-board group.
Pre-board.
Yeah. Like
great.
that, especially traveling with Michael. Like that's great for me. Like I don't have to. I don't have to wait in that. Especially these days, like because Southwest, like you have to line up, and it is a cattle call. Like you are crammed in.
I would never take Southwest
with so
without a
many
fat
other
person.
people.
Yeah.
right. I never go Southwest without my fat person.
Yeah, that's why I always have one.
Get one today.
I mean, once they started equipping their freaking boarding people with cattle prods, you knew it was all over. Like,
But yeah, good things are happening, people,
Things are happening.
including a bit
A bit.
Yes, we do in fact have a bit.
A bit of a bit.
So, the word liberation means a lot of things to a lot of different people. When you say the word in the Western world, though, the most common movement it's associated with verbatim is the women's liberation movement. So I thought I'd focus today on one of the lesser known events in the women's liberation movement, the Battle of Glasgow.
Ooh.
Okay.
So
In England,
the whole
it's all revolving in some way around this thing, the Battle of Glasgow.
Ooh, it's a whole Glaswegian tip.
In England, in the early 1900s, the suffragettes were in full force out marching for women's equality. The response from the authorities was quick and surprisingly brutal. Women's marches were quickly dispersed by truncheon-wielding police and even mounted officers charging through their gatherings on horses. In response to this, a suffragette by the name of Edith Garud started teaching the suffragettes a new skill that she thought might protect them. Which skill did she teach?
my.
1. Jiu-jitsu, a martial art form used for direct hand-to-hand combat. 2. Cavalry tactics. It wasn't uncommon for women and upper-class women of the time to be able to ride, so horses were used as barricades and even to charge police on foot. 3. Confrontational nonviolence. Women were taught to feint aggressively and use dead body tactics to block access to areas and make arrests more difficult. Or 4. Confrontational nudity. Cops were notoriously hesitant to beat a half-naked woman.
Oh, wow. See, I was going with the aggressive nonviolence until you came up with partial nudity.
Yeah, I'm torn between those two.
So Michael saw me kind of chuckle. And
Where did you go?
So my first thought was just like,
Come on.
how to suck a mean dick and just their souls leave their bodies.
And we've just lost our family friend.
And so because I almost feel like it, like I was thinking aggressive fainting, but now I think
Sucking a mean dick.
using their sexuality.
All right, we got
have
one
any
for
left?
confrontational nudity.
I like it so much I have to pick it.
Yeah, same.
And I also can see like some absolutely pissed off Scotswoman saying, you know what, you want to arrest me, you're going to have to do it nude.
Yeah, D.
All right, we got 3 answers for
Shaking it.
confrontational nudity. The correct answer is, in fact, jiu-jitsu.
No.
Yes, this
Were
was
they,
one of,
were they nude?
they were not. Edith Garud actually started teaching large numbers of the suffragette movement to how to use jiu-jitsu.
Wow, never thought of it.
And founded one of the first major dojos in the West that taught women. Okay. The Battle of Glasgow occurred in 1914 when the suffragettes were hosting a prominent speaker at St. Andrew's Hall in Glasgow. Although the cops hoped to arrest Mrs. Emmeline Pankhurst before she arrived, she snuck in early among the sold-out crowd and appeared on stage at exactly 8 o'clock as scheduled, it said like a ghost out of the nothing. When the 50 cops present attacked the stage trying to arrest her, they found a full regiment of bodyguard Amazons fully trained in jiu-jitsu and armed with 1. Massive flagpoles that had been arranged in advance to be used as pikes to fend them off.
Oh my gosh.
2. Clubs that had been concealed in purses and dresses. 4. Flower garlands throughout the chamber that were concealing barbed wire barricades and traps. Or 4. One pissed off Scottish woman with a gun. Ha!
Boy.
I mean, the practical answer is the clubs concealed in purses and dresses. But I'm going to go for flagpole pikes.
Flagpole pikes?
Yeah, because I just the idea of a pike giving you distance, like the reach of it, I think that's
But
smart.
you also can't use that in a crowded hall, which is why I don't
I guess it depends on how.
It depends where they're stationed.
Yeah.
okay.
Like if there is some distance.
I mean, keep in mind the cops had to charge the stage. So if they're up on the stage, you could use those to fend them
Yeah,
off.
that's what makes me think club.
Okay.
is that what you're?
But
going
I've been
for?
wrong every time, so I'm going to stick with that streak. And I'm gonna go
Good
with
for
clubs.
you.
I'm going to go with clubs.
Okay, we got 1 clubs, we got 1 flagpoles.
I'm going to go with the Scottish woman with a gun because I'm still just...
All right. So we have 1 for clubs, 1 for flagpoles, and 1 for pissed off Scottish woman with a gun. And the answer is all of the above. Oh, good.
I almost guessed that. I almost guessed that until the Scottish woman with a gun, and I thought, well, that just sounds like a joke.
Nope, they literally had flagpoles conspicuously concealed throughout the hall. All of them were armed with these things called Indian clubs that they'd smuggled in from London on the trains.
Oh my gosh.
That basically look like juggling clubs. Have you ever seen those?
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
but they're like the right size and heft for a woman to use comfortably. And although most women did not know she was doing it, one Scottish woman did smuggle in a hand pistol filled with blanks.
Oh,
That she did fire to create a panic in the place when everything happened. I've been trying to come up with a movie script based on this for a little while. I freaking love this story.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
I can see
Just
why.
the idea of these garland covered barbed wire
Oh my God.
lines going through the hall. Like, I love it. I love it.
And the time is right for this movie.
So, what acts of violence are you willing to commit for your freedom, listener? Where can they tell us about it?
Well,
Sure.
we're on Instagram and Twitter as @BigFatGayPod. We're on Facebook as the Big Fat Gay Podcast. 5 stars there, 5 stars on Apple Podcast, 5 stars everywhere. Leave us, subscribe to our Patreon. Leave us reviews, all the good things. You need a call?
No.
Okay. I don't know. Just
Keep going. Keep going. The drums are rolling.
www.bigfatgaypod.com. See the articles we talked about. I don't know. Maybe you're trying to come up with tactical things, and who knows?
I think we need like barbed wire braces, suspenders.
I don't know. I still just I like the nudity. I like my violent blowjobs that just make people's souls leave their bodies. It's like little ghosts like coming up.
Bring us home, Trevor.
That is
Please,
the Street
God,
Fighter
bring us
move I
home.
need in the next video game.
Just
I don't know.
let's make it to the end of this show.
You're gonna just watch out.